everything here in Vegas is jumping. UFC 202, Diaz, McGregor 2, that of course the main event, but there's a heck of an undercard. A lot of fights that I am interested in watching, and so are a lot of bettors leading up to Diaz, McGregor 2. We had talked last week, Matt, doing a radio show on SB Nation Radio. You were saying to me the incredible amount, 6 figures in wagers that you had taken on Diaz, McGregor. Is this card, I know it's slowed down a little bit at CGT, but is this card, do you think it's going to become the card, the record-setting card for the amount of handle you guys take?
It's going to be interesting to see, and a lot of that kind of has to do with the undercard, and we'll see what kind of action we get on that, Friday, Saturday, all the fight fans in town, how that kind of goes. For McGregor Diaz 1, we did 1.5 million in handle. We're obviously trying to eclipse that this time. Look, the buzz is there. The fight week buzz seems to be here. The undercard's great, like you said, so we're hoping to break it. I think one of the big differences before is that on the undercard, we also had Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate, which was a huge secondary headliner. We don't necessarily have that monumental secondary headliner that could main event a pay-per-view by itself here, but it's a really strong card, and the hype train is definitely in the station this week in Las Vegas.
You mentioned Holm and Tate and the underdog winning there, and we've seen at least recent cards, last several cards, that the UFC underdogs that are getting big action, and I mean driving the line big time, have been cashing. These underdogs have been winning. One of the underdogs that's being bet right now involves the Glover Teixeira fight against Anthony Johnson. And you had mentioned to me earlier that CGT opened Anthony Johnson about a 220 favorite, all the way down to 180. Have you guys been taking a hit? Have you been able to withstand all this underdog play that's been coming through for bettors?
So it's good and bad. Anytime a lot of dogs are winning, it's good and bad. So the McGregor Holly Holm night, we took a beating. We had some really big double dog parlays that night, where if just one of the favorites and one of the dogs would have won, we would have absolutely cleaned up. But because both dogs won, we took a real pounding, and both big dogs that night. Nate Diaz around a 4-to-1 dog, and Miesha Tate also at least a 2.5-to-1, 3-to-1 dog. So that ended up being a tough night for us. But some of these dogs, like Michael Bisping, nobody bet Michael Bisping to beat Luke Rockhold. So, and we actually had someone bet, lay the huge 130,000 to make the 10,000 kind of bets on Luke Rockhold. So sometimes they work out great. Sometimes in terms of Diaz and the Miesha Tate night, they don't work out for us. As for this fight right now, we have taken a lot of Glover Teixeira money. Look, when you look at the light heavyweight division in the UFC, of the 15 ranked fighters in the official UFC ranked rankings, 8 of them are coming off a loss, 6 of them are 35 years or older, 1 of them's 40, and 2 of them haven't fought in 2016. This is a division where you have a lot of issues. It's an aging division. Your star, maybe the biggest star in the UFC, John Jones, is on suspension again because he can't keep himself clean. The winner of this fight is the one true, clear, and only candidate for the next title shot against Daniel Cormier. So a lot on the line in this fight. And I think when you look at this fight, you have the 2 biggest power punchers in the UFC light heavyweight division. Glover Teixeira, 22-25 wins by finish. Anthony Rumble Johnson, 15-21 wins by KO. But what you come into here is a situation where, okay, we know they can knock each other out. Rumble Johnson might be the hardest puncher in all of MMA, so you give him a slight advantage there on his feet, maybe. But Glover Teixeira has more ways to win this fight. He also has 7 submission wins, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So I think the fact that Teixeira has a few more ways to win, and the fact that you were getting a 2-to-1 price really attracted those dog bettors here early, driving that line.
One thing, though, I cannot get over the fact that Teixeira absorbs about 2 more strikes per minute than does Johnson if you look at the fight stats. And that metric just keeps jumping out at me when I see 2 guys who can knock each other out. As soon as this fight starts, it could be over in 15 seconds.
That's
if one
right.
guy's leading with his chin, that's how good each one of them is when it comes to their striking ability. But I don't like the fact that, again, Teixeira takes all those blows when he's in a fight compared, or relatively speaking, to what Rumble Johnson does.
Look, Rumble Johnson's a better athlete. He's a better striker. He's better, more dynamic striker, both feet, both knees, both hands. He can knock you out with any of them. The one difference here is, though, there's kind of a clear path to beat Rumble Johnson. Daniel Cormier simply out-wrestled him, tired him down. Rumble Johnson gassed, and Cormier submitted him in the 3rd round in his only title shot for Rumble Johnson. Glover Teixeira is significant advantages in this fight in the wrestling department and in the submission game. If this fight goes to the ground, you're talking about a 2-to-1 dog who's probably a 3-to-1 favorite the second it hits the mat. But I'm with you. Glover Teixeira doesn't duck a lot of punches, and eating power punches from Rumble Johnson's not a very good path to victory.
Quick thoughts I want to get a best bet from you. I also want to ask you real quickly about Story and Cowboy Cerrone, Rick Story. Right now, about $1.50 or so underdog. Looking like a live dog to you in this particular fight? I mean, Cerrone has some of the things that Cerrone doesn't do well can be exposed by a guy like Story.
Look, I mean, Cowboy Cerrone is one of the 15 most popular fighters in the UFC period. So we always, as far as tickets written, we're writing a ton of tickets on Cowboy Cerrone. All the sharp money's on Rick Horror Story here. 7 of the 8 fighters that have beat Cowboy Cerrone are lefties. He just doesn't match up with southpaws very well historically, whether it's at 155 or 170 where he's 2-0 now in the UFC. Cowboy's had trouble with southpaws. Rick Story isn't just a southpaw, but he's a big southpaw. He's big for a 170-pound division. So you have a guy coming up from 155, a guy who's already big at 170, and a southpaw that gives Cowboy Cerrone fits. It's not hard to see why some of the underdog bettors are backing Rick Story.
Best bet, I know you like this fight because we spoke about it a few days ago. It is the Fight Pass headliner on Saturday on Fox Sports 1. Neil Magny taking on Lorenz Larkin. Lorenz Larkin filling in for Dong Hyun Kim. Neil Magny is about $1.40 or so favorite, open up around $1.20, $1.25 in that neighborhood. I'm going to tell you what right now, Matt, you know your job. I really think that Magny should be laying a lot more than he is. I think this is a mismatch if he doesn't overlook Lorenz Larkin in this fight.
I completely agree. This is by far my favorite fight on the card. We sent it as $1.50. I thought it should have been a little bit bigger. I understand where the marketplace came from. Look, Lorenz Larkin was one of those guys, 12-0, came up through Strikeforce. It was a dynamic striker. Everyone thought, wow, this guy's going to be amazing. He's 5-4 since the UFC bought out Strikeforce, and really no significant wins. And a lot of people say, well, Magny is always fought at 170, and Larkin's coming down from 185, so maybe he'll be bigger. That's not the case here. Neil Magny's 6'3", Lorenz Larkin only 5'11". Magny's going to have huge reach advantages. One of the best clinch fighters in the game. Look, Neil Magny he's not great on the mic. He's not a great pitch man, so he doesn't get the respect he deserves. But he's 10-1 in his last fights. In the last 11 fights in the UFC, and if that was anybody else who had won 10 of 11, 4 of them against ranked fighters, they'd be getting a title shot. He doesn't get the love he deserves. I think he keeps him at range, and whenever Larkin closes the distance, I think Magny's going to get him in the clinch, use the knees and the elbows. I'm with you. This could be an easy night for Neil Magny.
I am glad, even with Kim pulling out, that they were able to get a fighter in the Lorenz Larkin. So, as you mentioned, Neil Magny, who's kind of flies under the radar. He
Number
is
7 ranked in the official rankings.
He's
right
Mike
there.
the Body Snatcher McCallum.
Sure.
Remember him from the boxing world.
Absolutely.
Could never get that big main event to put him over the top monetarily, but this will be the Fight Pass headliner. He can show off his skills here. He's Matt Holt of CGT here in Las Vegas, Vice President of Business Development. I'm Scott. Don't forget, you can get any package this weekend at WagerTalk. All you got to do is use the coupon code UFC10 to do so. More to come on WagerTalk TV.